Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the PlotCast. I'm your host, Nate Slater.
And I'm Chris Sandbrick, and today we're going to be reviewing Spider-Man Brand New Day.
So, if you didn't see our theory video, basically, I thought that maybe Peter Parker was going to become Man Spider in this. And like I said, I was completely wrong, although I kind of
Well, it
hoped.
was it was pretty close though. There
Yeah.
were definitely spider changes.
Yeah. I mean, they could have gone that way, but definitely the way they are taking this, going into Doomsday and Secret Wars, they kinda can't really go that route, so if maybe this was just a strict Sony thing and not colliding with the MCU, that could have been where they were gonna go, maybe do, like, a Man-Spider trilogy and then move on to something else, but obviously they didn't do that. I think I know what they're going to do, but we'll do that towards the end here, our thoughts and theories here on the future of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. But we want to talk about our initial thoughts. First of all, I want to say I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of surprises, especially really throughout the whole movie. But the beginning just had me grinning from ear to ear. It felt like they were taking scenes out of the recent Spider-Man games from Insomniac. Then they had the montages of the cover swipes. It was just really good. The movie overall was really good. But like coming out, I just didn't know what I would rate it. But I felt it wasn't a 10. I felt it wasn't necessarily a 7. So it'd be an 8 or a 9, but I felt it didn't deserve a 9 either. I was kind of torn between like, because we only do solid numbers here. Why do a point 5 or whatever? Just give it a round number. Looks better too, right? But I was trapped really realistically between a 7 and 8, and I can't really say anything else. Like by the end of this, we'll give our final review. So that's why I'm saying initially I didn't know what to give it. So I'm hoping by the end of this, I can come up with a solid answer. Chris, I know you have a solid answer, at least for your initial. What is yours?
Yeah. When I came out of it, I was happy with it. The movie, as far as the plot was concerned, was very predictable. You
Yeah.
could sense where each major beat was going. Um, and there were no, what a twist moments. But yeah, it was very enjoyable. Like you said, from the very beginning, the art direction was great. The way that they handled action scenes and the way that it was filmed was really well done. Um, and I enjoyed it for the most part, from start to finish. Great sprinkling of comedy here and there, plenty of cameos. Some felt unnecessary, but
Yeah.
that's kind of like a Marvel Cinematic Universe kind of deal. You have to have them.
Yeah.
It's also a setup movie. We knew that going in. But I will say that the character development in this is really what elevated a lot of it. While the story was predictable, the interaction between each of the characters is what you really want to watch this for. So I came out, I definitely gave it an 8. Yeah, it's got
Okay.
some problems, got some plot holes, got some questions that need answering, but for the most part, the movie is pretty solid.
And before we go any further, spoiler alert. How you were talking about setup movies, especially with Marvel, they have not had a very good track record of really good setup movies because, you're trying to do too much and the plot runs away from itself. But this, in my opinion, is the first time ever Marvel has gotten a setup movie right to where, yes, you're setting up a lot of things for it, two different kind of universes. Yes, it's one universe, but you're setting up the new X-Men, we'll put it that way. You're setting up where Tom Holland's going to go in his future as Spider-Man, as far as his normal arc within his universe, as well as Doomsday and Secret Wars. So you have that, and the biggest thing literally is the Hulk. The Hulk is now back to his original Hulk Banner state. He's no longer kind of trapped in this whole in the back of Bruce's mind being the mech suit, I guess you could say. He is his own person now, just like Banner is now his own person once again. So you have that, and then yeah, a little bit you have, obviously the Punisher, but really with the Punisher, his thing just kind of doesn't really go anywhere outside of this arc.
Right.
So it's not like it set him up to go any further. So that just begs the question, what's going to happen next for these people? Now, will Hulk finally get his own standalone film? I still don't think so. But we have a Hulk that actually will get angry and punch
A
things.
Hulk that
And
will smash.
yes, and definitely in Doomsday, we do need a Hulk, I'm sure. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Hulk, I feel like has been abused and misused a whole lot, especially when it comes to the Disney Plus shows.
yes.
We had him in She-Hulk, and there was tons of questions around him and his son, which
Yep.
showed up and then disappeared all at once. And we still haven't seen any She-Hulk since the show 2, so
Yep.
his whole relationship with her has basically vanished as well. But he was Banner and Hulk. He was, we had moments that their dynamic would keep changing. He could change at will. Then, the Hulk didn't even want to come out, and then they settled their differences. And then we had Smart Hulk, and now kind of out of nowhere, Smart Hulk has kind of disappeared. That they will likely clarify that at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, some debate on, what's really going on. Um, I'm not even going to dive into that because, I mean, when it comes to the Hulk, it's always about where we need him to go next.
Yeah.
Um, Especially after Ragnarok, we've kind of seen many sides to Hulk, and it's really just been whatever is necessary for the story.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think he's probably one of the most cameoed characters too. He's just kind of someone that will move stories along. He's both smart as Banner and crazy destructive as the hero side, if you will. Um, that and those kind of work in just about any movie. Um, so yeah, no, when it comes to Hulk, I think the real questions will be why did we lose Smart Hulk and what are we going to expect from him moving forward? But as far as him in this movie goes, I think the only thing that really was unnecessary was the inhibitor that they had on him. I know that they are pushing some kind of explanation of him being dangerous again, and it would make sense. He's working at a school, and in reality, no one's going to let him work around children if he could, potentially destroy the whole place.
Yeah.
So as a failsafe, yes, that makes sense. But I feel like the inhibitor itself is kind of OP. And the fact that its very existence is so early, it could affect so many things going forward, especially since we're bringing in the X-Men.
I mean, that could be part of the whole. I mean, technically, it was. It was kind of a crux of this movie because Peter figured out his own, and they used it
And then
to
he used a
disable.
universal one. That universal one became so OP, it basically made all the mutants coming after this obsolete. If you could just attach one of those
Yeah,
at
but
any point, it becomes just that holy grail object that is just going to solve any situation going forward. And I know that they're going to have moments with like, oh, we don't have the things necessary to make one right now, or this, that, and the other to allow things to go bad. um but it's always going to be one of those fallbacks.
well, the inhibitor part was around since I think the ending of Shang-Chi and the end credit scene, so it's been around for a while. But they made it a big thing in this, and I think they did it on purpose for the fact that mutants are coming, and this may be a part of maybe controlling mutants in the future. So maybe that's what they're kind of trying to set up. And it also goes to show that, how smart Peter is. Peter has always been smart, and it actually showed him that. All right, so sidebar here. yes, we know Peter's smart, but how is he affording all this tech? That's a big
Yeah.
plot hole into this. He has all this tech, he has this apartment or whatever that, it's what was it? That's
First of
not
all, it's New
necessarily.
York City.
Yeah.
Anyone who lives there knows how egregiously expensive any space is,
And
especially small spaces.
apparently it wasn't necessarily even an apartment. It was like a
A
attic or whatever.
workspace.
A
Yeah.
workspace, attic or whatever. And obviously they didn't necessarily say in the movie that he had to pay to be there, but nobody in their right mind is just going to let anybody stay anywhere for free, especially that they don't know. So, how's he getting money to pay for rent for this? I mean,
Yeah, and all of his equipment, everything that's necessary. We know he doesn't have a job.
yeah,
And my first thought was, okay, well, he inherited a lot of stuff from uh, Iron Man, Tony Stark, after he passed away. A lot went to him, but Happy Hogan was kind of his accountant, if you will. He was absent from this movie completely. But the fact that no one knows who he is means that money essentially evaporated. Um, if he no longer has access to basically Avenger money, because the question would be, well, how do you have access to Avenger money?
yeah,
So, there is a deeper conversation there, and I'm sure that they will come up with some kind of loophole, but the fact that they didn't for this movie, and they just showed him living by himself from what seems to be the period of about 4 years,
yeah,
and he's also in league with the new Avengers somehow.
yeah,
Again, it can be backstory that's thrown in later, but the fact that he's so chummy with Yelena, and they've already met. It's very clear, it's been established they have some kind of relationship. And he comes to her whenever there's an issue. So, and the same, I guess, would go for the Punisher. Again,
yeah,
events in the past, they do joke around a lot about the Staten Island
yeah,
incident. But that feels more of a writer's joke than anything else. But I'm sure that that's going to be, but they've got to a point where they are friends enough from the beginning of the movie to have each other's phone number,
yeah,
because they do call each other. But yet, at the beginning of the movie, we still have Frank Castle shooting him with grenades. So, to what level does a friend become an actual friend? You know?
Well, I mean, we're friends. We've done some crazy stuff to each other before. So, sometimes you just gotta slap your friend out around a little bit. And I think that's kind of what it was. He knew he wasn't gonna hurt Peter, but he was just kind of mad that it's like, Peter, come on, let me do my freaking job. You're sucking at it right now. Get out of my way. And he just, he knew Peter would be fine. And in a way, he got Peter to the freaking tank pretty quick, if you think
Yes.
about it.
However, he jumped immediately off that tank and kicked Frank out of his van, which Frank is just a human.
Yeah.
I'm
To
just
be
saying,
frank.
Spider-Man is a bit of an a-hole when it comes to that moment.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is about this too, they actually went pretty far with this. This is like the most PG-13 probably Marvel movie we've seen. Like they had blood. Punisher had blood coming out of his mouth. Peter had
Oh,
blood.
blood basically gushing out.
And they had swearing up the wazoo, but
Yeah.
still, like I was amazed on how adult they were getting with this. I'm like, all right, they didn't necessarily muzzle the Punisher too much in this. So that was another thing I was pleased about, that they went for it.
I will say that when it comes to the Punisher, though, throughout this movie, their relationship is probably one of the best parts of this
Yes,
movie. Their banter, you can see it developing before your eyes throughout the whole movie. Character development is definitely a main part in this movie.
yep. I mean, to be honest, this felt the most comic book accurate Spider-Man out of all the movies that we've come to see up until now. I mean, like you said, Spider-Man reacting with the Punisher when they're fighting the Hulk. He's like, "Well, look at the guy. What are you doing?"
Yeah,
Like just the like in the moment going nuts kind of thing, like trying to talk Punisher out of being an idiot. Was was
that was
hilarious.
definitely one of the funniest yet also cinematic fights we've had
Yeah.
in quite some time. I mean, cinematic in the sense that, they were constantly doing their individual thing. The
Yeah.
way that Spider-Man was pulling Frank out of the way and he continues to shoot as the Hulk
Yeah.
jumps over him. But you also had the Hulk doing his thunderclap. You
Yeah.
had when they were outside of the building, Spider-Man doing the many different webs to pull him down. Hulk obviously destroys a portion of the building, and yet everything kind of filled together,
Yeah.
and it was lore built on lore. No one was forgetting who can do what.
Yeah.
They were just going at it.
The other thing that was also funny is when you talked about the Staten Island thing, I totally drew the parallel from because that was obviously Peter, Spider-Man, and Punisher's Frank's thing, but it reminded me of Hawkeye and Black Widow's Budapest
Yeah,
thing. Is all I was thinking. It's like they had that in with each other. Now these guys have their in with each other that like only they know about, but it was a monumental moment for both of them for some reason. So
yes,
I thought that
yeah,
was pretty cool. But the one thing I thought was interesting is that before I saw this movie, there was an interview with Tom Holland, and he was talking about there's only one person that remembers who that Peter Parker is Spider Man, and I made a joke in the comment section. Of course, Peter remembers he's Peter Parker, which is the dumbest thing. But watching this movie, you come to realize that the Hulk, the Savage Hulk, remembers who Peter is because technically that version of Hulk was locked away in deep inside Banner, so technically it was almost like he wasn't there or wasn't
yeah.
able to
He
be
wasn't
affected by the
affected by the
spell.
magic, which is kind of silly in the sense because that's the only thing that really affects Hulk is magic. Um, So, but I mean, yeah, it's understandable. However, there is that moment at the end of the movie where Ned
Yep.
and Peter are together, and there is a moment where it seems very much so that Ned does remember Peter. And if that is true, why is it him and the Hulk and not MJ or anyone else that's been around him very intimately?
See, that's the thing. I don't think they 100% remember. I just think because of everything that happened with Jean, because she is the world's most powerful psychic, more powerful than Charles, which, technically she is the first X-Men mutant that we've come across. And as far as we know, she had a sister, which she learned everything from her sister, how to, do the body hopping and whatever. Um, but it definitely seemed like when she was getting her powers kind of amplified by Metzger at towards the end of the film, and she made that kind of huge bubble or whatever psychic bubble that kind of locked everybody in place. I feel like her exuding that amount of power is kind of like she's expanding. I guess you could say the way I took it is like she's expanding her mental powers, but in doing so, maybe parts of what she knew or maybe what she was doing was kind of messing with other people's brains. So maybe in a way, because she saw inside Peter's mind, she know technically she is another person who knows everything about Peter now. I mean, granted, she didn't know who Peter Parker was before that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, but I felt like because she was able to get into his head and know all this knowledge now in that whole bubble, it kind of expanded her knowledge into other people and kind of messed with that whole spell. So, not saying that everybody's memories are back, but it her bubble kind of created cracks in people's memories to make it to where maybe Ned doesn't exactly remember that Peter is Spider-Man, but he knows that at least his name is Peter and they did this weird handshake. It's like, oh, you're familiar. Your name's Peter. Somehow we know this handshake. So like that's how I took it. Something's up. Like something fishy is going on.
I mean, he has established that he knows that Spider-Man's name is Peter, and there's this connection with this guy. He knows Peter, this version of Peter, as the guy who came to the party with
Yeah.
MJ. MJ now also knows, he's seen MJ interact with Spider-Man,
Yeah.
calling him Peter. So, it wouldn't be too hard for him
Yeah.
to
To
even
deduce
as
it.
a stretch. I mean, he's already proclaimed that Flash Thompson could be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So, it's not a stretch for him to think this Peter could be
And the
Spider-Man.
funny thing about that too is, I believe before he thought Flash was Spider-Man in the other movies, when he was trying to, or in the beginning of the first movie, he's like, "Oh, Flash could be Spider-Man" or something like that. I can't remember. It's been such a long time, but I think he had that theory originally too.
Right.
But the other thing too is they also show MJ wearing the necklace, the Black Dahlia necklace
Yeah.
that Peter gave to her, and she was sitting on the roof that they were all sitting on in the third Spider-Man movie. So it definitely seems like maybe she was getting a little,
Vibe at least. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I definitely, for me, it felt like they don't 100% remember, but there's kind of like fragments coming through. That's the
Right.
best
I
way I
mean,
could
they
put it.
said that there were missing pieces of
Yeah,
knowledge. You know, Ned kind of pointed that out when he realized that Spider-Man had been following them to like Europe and to Washington. Like, why
yeah,
would he be there when they were there? We've been saved multiple times, but in different places outside New York. And Spider-Man typically is exclusive to New York,
yeah.
but not when they're out of town.
And the other thing I found kind of funny is that if you think about it, it would be very creepy because technically, why is Spider-Man stalking you?
Yeah,
Like, he's a stalker, like, oh my God. I mean, now MJ kind of knows because obviously she read the note.
right.
But then again, like, I did like how they did that scene because I felt it went the way it would really go in real life. It's like, I don't know you, and so I can't love you, and I'm sorry, I don't know what you're hoping, but I have a
The
boyfriend.
thing about the magic is it makes people forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Okay, that's fine. But is there not still photographic evidence he was in their lives? Like the yearbooks that they would have had?
No, I mean, I think no, I think he was just really erased completely from everything because I believe at the end of the last movie, they, basically said that he's gonna be erased like he never existed, which is also kind of weird. Which I thought with that movie is I'm like, okay, was at Aunt May's grave and Happy was there, and they had this whole conversation, and it's like he didn't know who Peter was there, like obviously, but then again, it's like if he knew his aunt and he was around his aunt this whole time, something would have had to have clicked there, you know?
Right, exactly. I mean, it's poor writing is what it is. And it's one of those corners that writers write themselves into that there's no clear explanation about anything. Um, like you said with Happy, like Happy met Aunt May through Peter as Spider-Man. That wouldn't
Yeah.
click. Like, how did I meet this chick? I'm here grieving over her grave, and I don't even know how I met her.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, obviously, maybe Magic made up something else to fill in the gap, but and that's not necessarily the problem with
magic is
this movie.
such the worst. Go to.
How did it happen?
It's
Magic.
a scapegoat. Yeah,
Yeah, and like I was saying, that's not necessarily the problem with this movie. That's realistically the problem with the last movie, but then again, it does create some problems with this movie. Not so
I
much in this
still
movie.
vote. I still vote that they should have said, the wish should have been, I wish that Mysterio didn't know who Spider-Man was.
True. One thing I want to talk about quickly, like you mentioned it before, how the beginning kind of started, how it kind of had the cover cameos of all these villains. Like we ended up having Ramrod's cover there, we had Tarantula's cover, and in the trailer they showed those, and I was completely thinking, I'm like, this is gonna be a beginning montage, like who he's been fighting over the past four
Right.
years. So they did do that, and like you called predictable, that was very predictable. They had this boomerang guy. They also had Tombstone. I
Yeah.
actually thought he was going to be a bigger part in this, and he
Yeah, so
wasn't.
did I. I was surprised because they gave him obvious screen time, up close shots, and then that was it.
I mean, he could be another one that comes back later on. I mean, they could actually even put him in Daredevil if they wanted to.
Right.
He's another street level kind of villain, so they could have him as like a muscle kind of character that Daredevil has to go against would be pretty cool. That guy was perfect for that role. And also in that montage, they did have the Scorpion, which was another thing. I was expecting way more Scorpion in this, but you and I did have a conversation before this movie came out, thinking that he might be another part of the montage, which is funny too because I remember watching the trailer and I could have sworn he was wearing like his helmet in the trailer, and he didn't wear it at all, I don't think, in this movie. So I wonder if it was either a deleted scene or if they just,
Decided to remove
yeah.
it in post, not thinking it fit with the scene. Yeah, it's very possible. I was kind of surprised because I was expecting a little more from Scorpion,
Hmm.
being that he's
Yeah.
been built up since the first Spider-Man movie, and it was obvious that they were trying to set up a Sinister Six movie, which they clearly never got around to
Yeah.
doing. However, now that we did actually have that opportunity to have him in a movie, it wasn't really even him. The majority, especially his fight, the second big fight,
Yeah.
which wasn't even it was kind of a letdown, I feel. But it was Jean Grey the whole time.
Yeah.
Also, and I know we kind of mentioned it off screen before, it felt a little weird that, he had that moment where he grabs him by the tail, he goes a little crazy, and he hits the cop car, which flips, and the girl gets injured, the police officer gets injured, and then everyone shows up right after that, but then instantly blames him, but no one was there to witness it.
I mean, out of those people that showed up, yes. I mean, granted, there was some pedestrians around, but the cop, the wolf, she gets out of the car and like right away, like saying,
There
in
was
the
too there was so little time because we saw the whole thing second for second. There was no break. No one told her anything. It's not like she was filled in on anything. And just because she saw him be concerned about this police officer doesn't necessarily, point guilt anywhere.
true,
It just it felt like, that might have been something that she should have watched, but she
yeah,
wasn't there. There's just a little mistake while filming. Um, but yeah, no, it definitely felt it took me out of the moment. Let's put
yeah.
it that way. I remember going, "How the hell does she know?"
I mean, the other thing too, we got to think about, even though this isn't tying directly. I mean, we did just have, at least from my knowledge, maybe if it's closer to this point, I mean, probably not exactly close, but recently in the timeline there, they just got rid of the whole vigilante act that Fisk had in place. So,
Right.
yeah, if you guys didn't notice, Sheila, his old secretary or whatever, she's now the new mayor of New York. So they do, or rather, they are making more connections to the TV shows. So I'm kind of hoping that we get Kingpin here soon, and who's to say he won't be in the next solo Spider-Man movie, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, that was kind of weird. And going back to the whole point I was trying to make is that, maybe superheroes or mass vigilantes are still not 100% okay with the public at this point. Yes, Punisher's going out and about doing his thing. Spider-Man's been web
Yeah,
slinging for
but
a
Punisher's
while.
never cared about that. So
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it even shows in this movie. He just does his own thing. Peter is, tries to do things by the book, and it seems like he does have a friend in DeWolf. At least she's always with her kids on the phone. They're always wondering, is it Spider-Man? It's kind of cool to see
yeah,
the kids that are just like, oh, that's so cool. But yeah, it did kind of take us out of it. Plus, Scorpion, we haven't gotten the full Scorpion really doing his own thing on his own, aside from being controlled by Jean Grey. And that's mainly because the whole plot of this movie is Jean's trying to get revenge and find out really what happened to her sister. She's trying to go after Metzger and damage control because we now kind of figure out in this movie what damage control has been doing. Yes, we know from the prior movies they've been collecting alien tech, but it's also kind of shown us that they've been gathering intel on every superpowered individual, whether it be mutant, non-mutant, whatever, enhanced that they're called. Also, they're trying to kind of make a defense just in case. So it's almost like we're getting kind of the what do you call it, anti-mutant kind of thing before the mutants are really well known in the MCU. And, the Department of Damage Control is like the beginning stages of that. And
right.
but it's also kind of messed up because they're also exploiting her sister to try and use her powers for their own nefarious reasons. I called it right away when I was watching it, and first of all, before I saw this movie, Chris, you told me like, oh, when you see the bad guy, you'll know it's the bad guy. And when we get to the part in the movie when we finally meet Metzger, I saw him and I'm like, holy crap, it's the dude from freaking Severance. And then that's when it popped in my head. I had like the whole little like bubble or head of Chris floating behind me saying what he said. And it said, when you see the bad guy, you will know it's the bad guy. It was one of those things where I'm just like, hey, that's it. Going back to, everything's predictable. It was predictable, but he makes such a good bad guy, even because he's so
Yeah.
nice. He's so nice, but he's so bad.
Yeah. He's deceptive. That's something they don't do too often. Usually the bad guy is very obviously, the classic supervillain. So yeah, I mean, he's not the first of his kind in
Yeah.
the MCU, but it's nice to have a refreshing, you know, low level, non-powered bad guy every once in a
Yeah.
while.
And he's
Uh,
not necessarily a bad guy. Basically, with the snap, that changed everything. Everybody's
right,
awareness of everything in the universe. So now the people on Earth are trying to be extra cautious with anybody who has powers. Because the people who don't have powers have to fear these people that are essentially a
right.
ticking time bomb.
Right, they have to level the playing field, and that makes sense. And yeah, that's going to be a big deal when we get to the mutants. So there's probably going to be more of an agency, right? Like we have damage control right now, but there'll be more of a military force that will be tasked eventually to take people down. It's always going to come down to one of those things where there's going to be a government body that will be the bad guys, disposable baddies to kick around, as these movies tend to do, but also they will stand for something, and that something won't necessarily be a bad thing. It will
Yeah.
be, we're trying to do good. We just do it in a bad way. I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost like the TVA. Again, makes sense. They're trying to make sure that people aren't messing around with the timelines, but at the same time, they were the ones messing with the timeline. So, it all comes down to perspective.
Yeah. And the thing that's funny is like when during that scene when I saw him and then you see the hand there, which is also funny. It's another reference to Daredevil in this show, aside from Punisher and obviously the new mayor of New York. But we see the hand there, and we haven't seen them since Daredevil season 2 or 3. I
Two,
think 3.
three, yeah.
Yeah, because they were also in Iron Fist, which he's going to be making a return at some point too. So I thought it was funny that we saw them there, and I thought to myself, yep, they're going to be used at some point to fight Peter, because we did see it in the trailer too. And then we get to the end fight there, and the thing I thought was funny is like, yeah, he was like, oh, there's only 5, but yeah, at the end there's way more than 5. But the fight scene that they had was so cool because he did the like giant falling spinning spider web kind of like giant blast all over the place, and that was something like right out of the video game. And I thought that was really
Right.
neat.
It is important to kind of notate the change too, because obviously Pete went through the mutation. Um, and we've seen that they have technology that kind of nullifies his web slinger technology. And the hand was kind of like that force that was meant to take him down if he ever got out of hand.
Yeah.
um, and then we instantly see the change where he is now stronger. He has natural webbing now that their gun things can't affect, so he is essentially a new force that they would have to figure out all over again.
Basically, this movie was, in my terminology, the boy has become a man now. He hit
Yes,
his spider puberty. I mean,
eventually Andrew Garfield will hit that point.
at some
he
point,
will he will hit spider puberty.
maybe not, but who knows? Uh, but yeah, it kind of goes down to like what my theory was with the whole man spider thing, it kind of seemed like they put many allusions to that could have happened, like especially how his eyes went super dark or whatever when his
Yeah,
hormones like went crazy. I was like, oh, they are gonna do it, and then they didn't. And then also with the organic webbing, there's that too,
right.
because Toby was the only one who had that, and they made obvious references to it in the last movie. So I was like, oh, this is gonna go off the rails here. But I think it really sets up, you know, a good arc going into Secret Wars and in the next two Spider-Man movies to kind of end that trilogy. But we'll talk about that in a minute because we're just gonna finish up this little critique here. One thing I also thought was predictable was the fact that, they kept bringing up VMAX. Obviously, when I heard that, I kept thinking Pokemon for some reason. But the moment Jean Grey is tied up in that room and then she looks up, I was like, don't tell me it's a vent. And then she looks up at the vent and it says VMAX. I'm like, oh, I knew it. So that
Yeah,
was very predictable. But the one thing I actually didn't predict, I mean, obviously, until the part where it happened, was I didn't expect Punisher to go on the roof to try and snipe in the window because realistically, it seemed like I was really far away to even
it
even to
is
snipe
really
a
far
bullet.
away. I agree. I assumed that's what he was going to do because he was at a distance, and he's known for sniping. Um, but even when they showed it, I didn't think he was actually going to fire because it
Same
just seemed
here.
so far away, and it didn't seem feasible that he would happen to be on the exact roof that would have a clear shot, a clear visible point all the way to her in the center of that building. It was very, very convenient.
I mean, even with that, like I felt like I thought he was just gonna go up there and hold the gun. Like as soon as we saw him do it, I was like, he's not gonna take the shot. And technically, he didn't need to take the shot, but he did anyway. And in doing so, Peter got hit. But I loved it because it showed Peter how heroic he is. This movie kind of built Gene up to be the bad guy.
It was very
Yeah.
obvious
Yeah.
misdirection. I feel like everyone knew it was Jean Grey before they even said her name.
Yeah. And I was actually surprised on how early they let us know who she was. I was like, oh, you're going to tell us this early? But that's probably because everybody's like, we're already assuming it already. You might as well
Yeah.
just clear it out of the way. But it just shows that, she was doing what she was doing because she wanted her sister back. That was it. She would have had her sister. She would have gone along on her way, but found out that her sister was murdered, used as a guinea pig, and she let loose.
You know
And,
what? She watched, every Taken movie and was like, "I want my family back." And
yep.
then she went on her rampage.
And then she decided to channel her inner 11 and
Yeah.
go psychically crazy. But I like it because it definitely showed that, how powerful she is, how that she isn't exactly a monster. Um, I really enjoyed the scene where they kept going back to the Aunt May scene with Peter in his
Yes.
mind. I really
Yeah, it's
enjoyed that.
slowly developing on it over time,
Yeah.
every
And
time that you saw it. I mean, it's it's a technique that is, very powerful, but it's very powerful the first time you see the movie.
yeah.
When you watch movies over and over after that, you just kinda wanna skip past it
Yeah.
because you're like, "I'm not seeing the full thing. Come on, let's
Yeah.
keep moving."
Yeah, I've seen it before. Let's go. Slowing down the momentum, but in an initial watch, its weight is there for a reason, and I loved it because it essentially, Peter was like, "Fine, you want to go on my mind? Go on my mind." Lets her in, and she goes to that one moment that kind of defined Peter on making his decision to, I guess you could say, be Spider-Man and deal with the consequences and stuff like that, and everything that comes with it. And it just, for Jean, it hit home for her too, because like she realized, wow, this guy is hurting just as much as I am, and it leveled the playing field. But in doing so, Frank had to take the shot.
Yeah, and I knew it. I just knew that was the point that was gonna happen. And sure enough, you hear the, bullet chamber, the shot, and there and you knew that Peter was gonna push her out of the way. He's got his
Yeah,
spidey sense. Everything kind of lined up. You knew how it was gonna happen. Um, and yeah, it was very predictable, but the acting,
Yep.
The character development kind of band-aided all those scenes that were predictable.
Yep, which doesn't normally happen at all. So Sony and Marvel really kind of figured it out, at least for this movie, as much as they
Yeah.
could.
Yeah, it is a far cry from Madam Web. Let's put it that
Yes.
way.
Madam Web is bottom of the totem pole.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Okay, I guess we can go into our final review here. So, after talking about it, I mean, I've had so much fun with it. Even thinking about like the end of the movie with Punisher wearing the outfit to help Peter get out of there, that was fun too. And it is an 8. Like I said, I just feel like there's so much in the back of my mind when you and I talked before we recorded this that maybe felt like I didn't know where to place this, either a 7 or 8. But yeah, just there's so many good wholesome moments. That's the best way I could describe this. This was kind of like a wholesome movie in a way, even though it wasn't.
It was
But
definitely very dark, but yes, the wholesome moments are what elevated it,
yes.
and it's what made it a Spider-Man movie.
Yep.
And I agree, and that's why I still am settled on an 8 out of 10 for this.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we are both at 8. Like I said, I was reluctant, but what I wanna get into now is kind of, you know, what what we think might happen in the future. You know my theories for the most part. I wanna hear what you might think might happen.
So, going forward, at least in the Spider-Man universe, we're kind of leaving Avengers to their own thing that's involving too many characters. We did have kind of a mention in Bruce Banner's classroom, Cindy. We may
Mhm.
have Silk. It's a throwaway kind of reference. It could mean something, it could mean nothing. But that's yeah, it could just be a hint. It
Yep.
could just be a hint. I would like to see more Punisher and Spider-Man. I don't know if that's what we'll get. Highly unlikely, to be honest. But it would be very welcome if they do. And you know that they will at least have scenes together in the big collaborations, if it's only a scene or two. I feel like people will be happy. People would
Yeah.
even be calling for it.
Yeah.
Now, as far as Peter going on to Secret Wars, obviously he's going to be a huge part of this. Obviously, it's going to be bringing in Venom, and they want to. They've been trying this for a long time now. The Venom movies unfortunately failed, but Spider Man, as the black suit Spider Man, it is definitely going to happen. So, Venom is definitely going to continue. Whether it is the piece that came off of Eddie Brock's suit or if it's an entirely different Venom from this universe, I don't know. But we should be seeing an Eddie Brock at some point. I don't think we're going to be bringing back Tom Hardy at this point. I feel like he's done with that. While he was still very good, the scripts failed him, and I don't feel like he would want to continue it at this point. But I feel like they should get a younger Eddie Brock. He doesn't have to be Spider Man age, but, um, someone who kind of fits the profile for this universe. I would love to see them introduce him rather soon, because I hate it when they introduce them just as they become the villain.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, show us, even just a scene or two in another movie beforehand, like they did with Cindy if she does become Silk. Actually, the scene at the end of Thunderbolt slash New Avengers, we did get to see the Fantastic Four ship.
Yeah.
Now, they did mention that was further in the future. I will also point out that Aunt May's grave mentioned that she died in 2024, and that this movie takes place over 4 years at least, because it shows the beginning of Ned and MJ at MIT and
Mhm.
then all the way to graduation. So we're looking at least 4 years. So
Yeah.
this technically ends in 2028. It might be closer to that point where Yelena sees the video footage of Fantastic Four show up. We also have an end credit scene
Yep.
where they kind of indicate that out in the middle of space, out of nowhere, another Spider-Man's showing up, or
Yeah.
this Spider-Man showing up. So they could be related. They might not be, but it's a solid theory at this point.
Definitely big potato stuff, let me tell you. So quickly, because we got to wrap this up here. My theory is that I don't think Tom Holland Spider Man will show up in Doomsday. I think there's enough leaks out there basically cementing that Tobey Maguire is going to be in it, which I'm totally down for, which is cool. But that leaves Secret Wars. I believe Secret Wars will be the next time we see Tom Holland. And I think my theory is we'll just see maybe a bit of him in New York, maybe taking down a villain and then maybe coming across something or getting sucked into some sort of portal that maybe it leads to Battle World. Who knows? Or whatever they're going to call it, where the incursion's going to happen. And in Secret Wars or whatever, that's when he gets the symbiote suit. And then in the next Spider Man movie, maybe it continues from where Secret Wars ends. He pops out of whatever portal or wherever he needs to. He has the new suit on. We finally get Black Suit Spider Man, and who knows who's going to be the villain. Hopefully, it would make sense for them to introduce Eddie Brock in that movie, and either by the end of that movie, Peter loses the symbiote to set up Venom for the next movie, or maybe the beginning of the next movie have the symbiote get on to Eddie Brock or whoever is going to go on, which they could make Scorpion the new Venom. I don't think they should, but who knows? You know, it's a brand new world here, but that's what I would like to happen. Why don't you guys let us know what you'd like to happen down in the comments below? And there you go, folks. That has been our review of Spider-Man Brand New Day here on the podcast. If you don't know us, we are Plot Hole Productions. We're on Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. You can check us out there. If you guys haven't, what are you doing? Follow us, like, you know, and once again, I'm your host, Nate Slater.
And I'm Chris Sambrook, and we'll catch you
You in
in
the
the void.
void.